Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, and we're going to do a shadow reading today on your Divine Masculine. Check out what's going on in their subconscious, the parts of your Divine Masculine that maybe they don't even realize they're being affected by. Or they may think that it's something other than what it actually is. Our shadows are those subconscious or unconscious parts of ourself that, can stem from our core wounds, our deepest fears, maybe even patterns of behavior that have been developed over a period of time in response to, life and the things that we have experienced. It can even be sets of rules and conditions that we've been, conditioned. I know I just used that word twice, but you guys know what I mean. Sets of rules and expectations that we've been conditioned to believe or to follow that may not actually be serving us well. Okay. It usually comes from a deep place within us, and it's oftentimes responses to fears that we have. If you've gone through life and you've been stung by a scorpion, your body is going to have certain kinds of memories about that that are going to be embedded within your system that are going to make it so that you don't ever want to be stung by a scorpion again. And so there's going to be these mechanisms that are now going to be in place that if you happen to be walking down the street and you see a scorpion, you're going to run from it. You're going to know that you don't want anything to do with that thing. But the problem is that if you're walking down the street and it's a rock that you see out of the corner of your eye that just happens to resemble a scorpion, you might have what is perceived as an overreaction or, reacting falsely to something. And then you turn around and you realize, oh, I just totally freaked out for no reason. That was just a rock. It wasn't actually a scorpion. But the truth is you didn't overreact. It was just that you misperceived. And so sometimes things that have happened and mechanisms for self-protection that have been put into place due to traumas or, experiences that we've had that were negative in life, sometimes those things can surface in situations where it's not appropriate or necessary, but it seems as if it is in the moment. So this is the shadow stuff that we have to look at when we are on our spiritual journeys. And so we're kind of looking today at what the cards tell us about your Divine Masculine's shadow stuff, okay? So just a little explanation for those of you that might need it. And our first card today with this is, what is it that your Divine Masculine needs to accept? Okay, what's going on in the background that your Divine Masculine needs to look at and accept? For this, we have 3 of Swords in reverse. So there could be certain types of physical injuries that your Divine Masculine has incurred over the years of their life. There could be some types of illnesses that they've experienced. All of this would be on a physical level, right? Maybe they've injured their knee when they were playing football when they were young. Maybe they're, dealing with some kind of, sickness that they've had for a long time. It could be, something really extreme, like a type of cancer, all the way to something, like being maybe like a celiac or something like that they've had to deal with. Something physical has affected your Divine Masculine. There's also the possibility that it might not necessarily be something physical that has afflicted them, but it could also be something in the emotional body or on the mental plane that has affected them. You know, there could be certain types of things, like it could be ADHD, it could be, which that again would also be physical, but it would still affect them on the mental plane. But it could be, you know, that maybe they experienced certain types of abuse or something like that, that would have maybe changed and rewired the way that they think towards situations, that would make it so that it would be hard for them to always know how to react and respond. Whatever this is, whether it's in their psyche or whether it's on a physical level, it affects them on a daily basis. It affects their relationships. It affects their job. It affects, you know, how they go about, you know, their day-to-day business. And this can be something that weighs very heavily on them. Sometimes they can be very much aware of how it's affecting them. But maybe not all aspects of it are in their awareness. Sometimes it can be deeply subconscious. They may have certain patterns of behavior if it's affecting them on an emotional and mental plane, where they're not even realizing that this is having such a profound effect in their life. So something's going on with your divine masculine that really has had like a kind of a consistent and ongoing negative effect on their day-to-day life. Okay. And that's a tough thing to deal with. Sometimes it can be so deeply ingrained that we don't know how to, like, where to even begin to fix that. And so, you know, this could be something that may take time for your divine masculine to find the right treatments for, and to know how to deal with. You know, so a lot of empathy for this would be beneficial for your divine masculine. What is it that they need to forgive? What do they need to forgive? For this, we have Page of Spheres or Page of Pentacles. So it looks like there's probably something going on in the workplace. It may not necessarily be in their job itself. It could be the way that they relate to work. It could be maybe a perception of work or a perception of their abilities as far as work is concerned. But it may be something within the workplace, like maybe they have a difficult boss, or they have a hard time with money. It could be something financial that is related to work. Like maybe they don't feel like they're making enough money, or maybe they don't feel like they're capable of, you know, making a lot of money. Something's going on in your divine masculine's psyche that is affecting work. It's affecting their business. If they own their own business, it could be certain obstacles that they have a hard time overcoming. Maybe there's certain parts of, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, how it affects their day-to-day life. It seems like it's taking a toll on them somehow. If it's a physical issue or a mental and emotional issue, it is having a detrimental effect on their, like in their work life. And that is affecting their finances. That's something that is going to vary from divine masculine to divine masculine. You'll have to look with discernment at your divine masculine's situation, because it can be so many different things. These can manifest in many different ways in the 3D world for each one of your divine masculines. But there is something going on where maybe it could be a self-esteem issue. They don't feel that they're good enough. They might have a boss who's maybe narcissistic and is constantly putting them down. Maybe they are always getting overlooked for a promotion. Maybe their karmic partner is upset with them, and giving them a hard time that they're not doing well enough with work. I'm just throwing out a lot of types of variables to kind of show you different ways that this could be affecting your divine masculine. If they have some type of a physical disability, that could be causing them to feel like they're not able to perform as well and excel as well in business. So it's definitely business related in some way, but again, you'll have to look at with discerning eyes at your divine masculine situation. And if you don't know, because sometimes we don't really know for sure what's going on with our divine masculine, just know that there is something like that that is affecting them. And you don't have to absolutely know. You don't have to figure it out. It's just going to give you a little bit of insight into the foundation of what makes them tick and maybe why they're acting the way that they do. Sometimes on the surface, our actions don't make sense to others. And it's important for you, Divine Feminine, to know this and understand this, because a lot of what we see our Divine Masculines doing, since we don't really know what the foundation and the underlying reason for it is, that leaves us a lot of room to fill in the gaps with our own perception of what we think is going on. And oftentimes that's also based and rooted in our shadow stuff, which comes from a place of fear. So we might start projecting, well, I don't know why they didn't call me back the other day. They must not like me, or maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough for them. Maybe they found someone else, or they think that I'm not pretty. It could be 1,000 different things, right? Maybe if you're divine masculine as a girl, maybe you might think like, I'm not good looking enough for them, or I don't make enough money, right? There's so many different ways that this can surface. But if we realize that this lack of knowledge for the foundation of why they're doing this is triggering our fears, we can set that aside and we can look at that and go, okay, these are just my fears. Maybe the reason that they didn't call me back has nothing to do with me, and it has everything to do with the fact that maybe they're upset because something didn't go right at their job today. Maybe they're upset because someone was rude to them and they just need like a little bit of space to kind of like process and digest this. And so even though they saw my text come through, or they saw that I called, maybe they're not feeling worthy of talking to me right now, right? Maybe it's not that I'm not worthy. Maybe it's that they're feeling that they're not worthy. So this is why this shadow reading is so important to look at, because it helps you to realize that a lot of what you project onto your divine masculine is rooted in your perceptions of fear, which may absolutely be an illusion, your own scorpion that's actually a rock, okay? And so just like this happens to them, it also happens to you. And when you can get beyond that is when you can really start getting into like your faith and recognizing that this is your soul's journey, and you can detach from outcomes because you recognize like what your fear-based energy is. Okay, that's some good stuff right there, Divine Feminine. So what is it that your Divine Masculine needs to release? Okay, we've got 6 of Cups in reverse. So what do they need to release? They have some pretty interesting unrealistic expectations. There's ideas and expectations that have been formed from conditioned beliefs, from family of origin, from life's experiences, just from naivety and immaturity, that they need to release that stuff. They need to let it go. Okay, those are patterns that can hold us back sometimes. And it's not bad that it happens. It happens to every human being. We all have to go through this, especially as we're spiritually maturing. We start to come to realize patterns of expectations that are not realistic, that were based upon false foundations, or that came from positions of naivety or ignorance or lack of knowledge and information. So your divine masculine has to release that. They have to let some of that go. That's something that could, I'll give you some examples, karmic situation, right? So say they have a karmic situation that isn't living up to their expectations. Maybe when they got married, they thought, oh, this is what it's going to be like. And then they got married and they had kids and they realized that it's not what they thought it was going to be, right? Things happen differently than they expected or anticipated. That doesn't mean that marriage or family is bad. It just means that it's not what you expected. And sometimes we have to let go of expectations and allow things to be what they are and find what we are grateful for in the reality of what it is, right? Sometimes we hold on to expectations and we end up ruining perfectly good situations because they didn't meet our expectations, when in actuality, the way that it played out wasn't bad either, right? So that's something that your divine masculine has to go through and recognize, is that maybe some of their expectations weren't necessarily coming from the right place, okay? Or weren't fully recognized and understood. What is it that they can learn? What can they learn from all of this stuff that's going on? Queen of Cups. Okay, so with Queen of Cups, I think that they need to learn to be more in tune with nurturing themselves and more in tune with what's really truly important about those that are around them. I think your divine masculine sometimes can get a little bit caught up in certain perspectives of things that aren't truly accurate. And so maybe they don't prioritize the right thing. So like an example of that would be, maybe they get upset because someone shows up late, right? This is just an example. They get upset because someone shows up late, and being on time is very important to them, which isn't a bad thing, right? Being timely is important and it's respectful. But maybe somebody shows up late and they showed up late because there was something that happened that was unforeseeable, and but also very understandable, right? Like maybe there was some very valid reasons, but your divine masculine doesn't see that. All they see is that they're upset that this person was late, and so they end up ruining the rest of the evening because of this one little thing. But if they could be a little bit more understanding, a little bit more forgiving, a little more open to the variables that can happen in life, and prioritize that having a good night with this person is more important than being angry and upset over a moment, then they can live like maybe a little bit more of a fullness in life, right? Now, that's an example, maybe not the best example, but it kind of gives you an idea of prioritizing things. What's more important? What's the most important thing? I always tell my kids, like when they break something, and they're really upset and they're sad, and I say, well, you need to learn a lesson and you need to be more careful, but your feelings and your self-esteem and especially if they're crying because they feel bad about it, I always say your feelings are more important than that cup, or your feelings and your experience and you knowing how much you're loved is more important than that spilled milk. However, I do want you to learn to be more careful to make sure that your cup is, set in a place where it's going to be safe and not knocked over. So I want them to learn the lesson from it, but their feelings and their experience and knowing that they're loved is more important. So in the example that I gave you with your divine masculine, prioritizing things the right way, it would be like, hey, it's really important to me that you spend time with me and that you show up on time, but, your feelings and your experience of what you had before this and us having a good night together is more important. So learn the lesson, communicate properly, and then move on. But sometimes what people will do instead is they're like, well, you were late and now our night's ruined and I don't even want to go anymore and blah, 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 right? Like, trying to just give you an example of what priority, or, having proper priorities are. And it looks to me like your divine masculine might get a little stuck on certain kinds of situations, and they have a hard time prioritizing what's really, truly important. And so they need to be able to forgive. They need to be able to release and let go of certain expectations. And they need to be able to learn lessons from it and prioritize properly, okay? Where can they seek healing and recovery, okay? Where can they look for healing and recovery in all of this? For this, we have 8 of Swords. So with 8 of Swords, it looks to me like communication is probably something that they need to cultivate more of. Maybe they don't communicate well. They have a tendency to hold everything in kind of close to the hip. And that would make a lot of sense, right? With this stuff that's going on. There's a lot of fear, a lot of unmet expectations, and not necessarily prioritizing things right and taking responsibility. And a lot of times those are things that can result from a lack of knowing how to properly communicate, or feeling like they're important enough to be listened to or understood. And so if they don't feel that saying things or communicating things is going to make a difference, sometimes they can get very jaded and they can just hold everything in and just kind of be grouchy and crotchety and mean to other people. And nobody knows why they're acting that way. And they're feeling like, slighted or jaded. So it could be something like that. It could be that they grew up in a family of origin that their voice was never heard and they don't feel valued and important enough. Or maybe the things that they did communicate were then turned around and used against them in some kind of a severe way. Then they're going to hold everything close to the hip because they're going to feel like it's dangerous to communicate how they really feel. So there could be a lot of ways that this manifests in your divine masculine, but something inside of them makes communication difficult. And a lack of communication can create all kinds of problems. And it can cause us to feel isolated. And when we're isolated and we don't communicate well, we oftentimes can get a lot of illusions and perceptions that are actually not accurate, right? Kind of like what I was talking about earlier, and I was talking with you, Divine Feminine, and I was saying, sometimes when you're left to fill in the blanks and you don't know why someone's done something, then you can fill it in with a whole bunch of things like, I'm not good enough, I'm not cool enough, I'm not smart enough, they don't really care about me, maybe we could start getting suspicious of what they're doing. That's what's going on. That's a lack of communication, right? And when your divine masculine doesn't communicate with you, it can leave your mind to its own devices, which can sometimes lead you down some pretty dark rabbit holes. That's what's happening with them. They don't feel like they can communicate. And so when they don't, it leaves them to thinking and assuming a lot of things that are not accurate, and can lead to unmet expectations and becoming very jaded and very isolated. And so they can learn from that. They can learn to let go of that. They can learn to communicate. And how are they going to do that? By stepping outside of that. Maybe they need to go to a psychologist and talk about some of these things. Maybe they just need to be kind of coaxed out of their shell and made to feel that they can. But either way, it's going to take some pretty serious work from them. And that's going to be a personal decision for them as to whether or not they seek help out. It doesn't have to come from a psychologist or a therapist. It can come from self-help books. It can come from watching people on YouTube even that, can give good advice on, self-recovery and soul searching, and but this is going to have to be something where they decide that they are important enough to prioritize and look into. Sometimes people get stuck in patterns of blame, where they blame everyone outside of themselves and they don't ever go within and look within to find the answers. And there could be some of that going on with your divine masculine. But seeking help outside of themselves, through books, I mean, it's still an internal journey, right? Whether they go to a therapist or whether they go to self-help books or whether they're listening to videos and educational, information to overcome some of these things. It's still an internal journey for them. It's something that they have to choose to do on their own. But there are a lot of resources for them to reach out to get help with this stuff, but it's just, they're going to have to decide that they want to do that. And sometimes they have to get out of blaming others first before they're willing to take steps to do this for themselves on their own. Okay, so our last card here is what can they do to help themselves? Like maybe we know now that there's some healing and recovery that needs to be sought after, but where could they potentially go and find this type of help? Where are they likely to go and find help? Like what would be a good place for them to start? And for this, we have Ace of Swords in reverse. So stress, mental blocks, dishonesty, a lack of judgment or poor judgment. These are areas that they need to go and seek help with. Okay, so seems to me that whether they've got physical ailments or it's mental and emotional, they're still kind of leading to the same place, which is even if it's like physical stuff that has been bothering them, it's the physical stuff that's leading to mental blocks and certain kinds of patterns of behavior that are not serving them well. So they've got to learn honesty. They've got to learn communication. Really, they've got to break a lot of these patterns and habits that have caused them to distance themselves and become isolated. It almost seems to me that it would point in the direction of outside opinion, and this cannot come from loved ones. Okay, maybe loved ones can urge and kind of push them in a certain direction toward getting help for themselves, but it needs to come from a objective outside source, or else your divine masculine isn't going to take it seriously. That's kind of what I'm seeing with this. So, their mother coming to them and saying, son or daughter, you need to get some help. They're going to be like, yeah, I know. But and even if they offer, well, you should read this book or you should do that, they may not take them up on that, unfortunately. Because maybe they just feel like, well, that's just coming from my mom, so my mom doesn't know what they're talking about. If it comes from you, it could be the same kind of thing. It's well-meaning, but there's some type of a block that holds them from doing that. So it needs to come from some kind of third party or outside source, right? Don't fret though, because the universe is working for them just like it's working for you. Source, God, knows what your divine masculine needs in order to progress and evolve. So that outside source will be brought to them. They may seek psychological help through a therapist, which would be, I think, really good for them. However, if that's something that they're not open to, which sometimes they're not, the outside source will be brought to them. They may be, at a bookstore, or they may be at a gas station even, and they come across some random person that's like, oh, they just strike up a conversation, and this person says, oh, you should read this book, and so then they're going to see that more objectively because it's not someone that they have emotional attachment to. If they're at a library and they come across a book that's they're going to stumble across it, it's going to resonate with them, they're going to see that as an unobjective source of information that isn't attached to a person that they have an emotional attachment to. And that's what I see, is that it needs to come to them organically on its own for them to be open to it. Once they kind of move beyond some of these patterns of behavior, they won't have that mental block toward getting and receiving information from loved ones, which is a beautiful and wonderful thing when we're open to it. But their receptive energy, right, that they're very much in that masculine push energy, right? And their receptive energy is kind of blocked. And so they need to open that up through going through their own personal journey and getting to that place on their own. So hopefully this reading resonates with you. I've never had a shadow reading come out quite like this before, so I'd be curious to see your take on that in the comments below. Your numbers today are 5 and 6, or 11, 56 or 65, okay? Let me get you an oracle card. Let's go with our star codes today and see what we have for your masculine. Now, we have a few specials going on right now. If you guys could like and subscribe, if you like our videos and you haven't subscribed, please do so. It really helps us a lot, and we really appreciate your support. It helps us a lot when you guys help us with the algorithm and like the video. And so we also have some specials with our one-on-ones, some discounts, and also with our tarot readings. So there are 40% off tarot readings and 30% off of one-on-ones right now through, I think, January 4th. It's our New Year's special. So if you're interested in that, all that information is in the description box below. We would love the opportunity to help you and to work with you. Your oracle card today is Gemini. Let's look and see what this has to say. All right. Cross-pollinate. With its symbol of a pair of twins conversing, Gemini asks us to weave a web of connections and build networks with humor and all forms of communication. This mutable air sign is ruled by Mercury and is connected to the lungs, shoulders, hands, and nerves. Gemini's purpose is to disperse ideas like milk thistle on the spring winds, cross-pollinate ideas like bees buzzing over the flowers. The sun shines here, May 21st through June 21st. Action. Words are at the heart of the issue you are facing, and not just any words, but real dialogue. Isn't that interesting that this is coming up, you guys? Because first of all, Gemini twins. I am a Gemini. But we were just talking about communication being an issue for your divine masculine, and Gemini is known for communication, right? And it's not just any kind of communication, it's real honest communication, which we also talked about, not being dishonest, being true to the self. So it's interesting that this is coming up right now. So words are at the heart of the issue you are facing, and not just any words, but real dialogue. If you feel tension in the situation, see what is blocking the lines of communication and open that aperture. Listen to the grapevine and cross-pollinate. Gather and share information. Bits of truth may float in on gossip. Explore social media, sound bites, and other ways to get the word out. Talk to people as if they are your siblings, true equals. If something is bothering you, find a place to unpack it, get it on the table and take a good look, and then talk it over in depth with a friend or therapist, or write in your journal. Trust the process of self-expression to get to the root of the problem. However, Assume everything you say will be repeated. Gemini scatters seeds. It's not concerned with privacy or individuality and is not necessarily loyal. Challenge. The situation may be more complex than you think, so be willing to dig in. Gemini energy can be shallow or oversimplified as it encourages breadth rather than depth. So you have to avoid the depth consciously, or so you have to add the depth consciously. Gift. Gemini's gift is an open mind and a sense of universal siblinghood. We are all in this together. The soul knows how to find itself back in equilibrium if we just let all parts communicate. Help the unexpressed feelings, persons, and elements within the community be heard. So I think this is an amazing card. This is what I think you can expect, that this is the energy that is coming up for your divine masculine, that is kind of being sent to your divine masculine. And it's the message that's being given to them, even on a subconscious level, that communication needs to be cultivated. And it can't be surface communication. It needs to be honest, authentic, and in the depth of what it really needs in order to create that connection and healing for your divine masculine. Okay. I hope this reading resonated with you. I think the rest of it kind of speaks for itself. I'm very, very pleased that this is the outcome for your divine masculine. They will reach this place. You can kind of give them the open door, but it's going to be up to them to step through it. Okay. So just stay open, allow that place to be like, allow them the space to be able to take that step when they are ready to take that step. Okay. It cannot be forced. It cannot be, pushed. It has to happen in the divine timing that it's meant to for your divine masculine. I love you guys. I'm looking forward to doing your reading for you tomorrow. I think tomorrow is your divine feminine reading, so tune in for that, and we'll get into kind of like what's going on with you and your energy. And until then, I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.